Have you ever felt like your mind is kind of running on autopilot, like it's executing these old programs you don't even remember installing? Well, what if the mind isn't some big, unsolvable mystery, but instead, it's a powerful operating system? And the best part? You're the programmer. So today, we're going to grab the manual and finally learn how to write some code.
Seriously, think about that for a second. This is the big idea we're diving into. We're going to use this really cool analogy of a computer to break down the actual structure of your consciousness. The goal here is to show you exactly where the code is running and how you can start rewriting it yourself. That's right, you're the one at the keyboard. You have the control. And this right here, this is your guide. We're going to walk through the 4 essential parts of this inner operating system: the hardware, the data, the processor, and finally, the user experience. So let's start with the absolute foundation. Okay, first things first. Every operating system needs some hardware to run on, right? Well, in this model, that's what the source calls our mind space, or in Chinese, xin, pronounced xin. This is the base layer, the very ground floor of our conscious experience. Now, it's really important to get this. Xin is not your physical heart or your brain. It's better to think of it as this vast, silent, empty space inside you. Picture an empty factory floor or an empty bedroom. By itself, it has no character. Its value is defined entirely by what you put inside it. It is pure, unlimited potential. So here's how the computer analogy really clicks. Your scene, that mind space, is like the physical computer case and all the parts inside, the motherboard, the power supply, all of it. It has this incredible latent power, but without any software or data loaded onto it, it just sits there. It's just a box of potential, waiting for you to turn it on. So if sin is the hardware, then what's the data we're loading onto it? Well, that brings us right to our next layer, what we call your inner content, or in Chinese, xinling, pronounced xinling. Your xinling is basically all the stuff that fills up that empty space of xin. And I mean all of it. Every thought you've ever had, every fleeting emotion, all your memories, your deepest beliefs and values. It's the furniture you put in the bedroom. It's the actual data saved on the hard drive. And it's always changing, always in motion. Just think about it like this. Your computer is defined by the files on it, right? Your inner content, your xinling, works the same way. It's this massive, sprawling landscape of thoughts and feelings. This collection of data creates the whole scenery of your internal reality. It's the raw material that your mind gets to work with. Okay, so we've got the hardware and we've got the data. Now for the really active part of a system, the engine. We need the processor. And in our model, this is your thinking, or siwei, pronounced siwei. Now this is probably the most important distinction we're going to make. Siwei is not what you think. Remember, that's the data, the shilling. No, siwei is how you think. It's the action, it's the active process, the set of algorithms you're constantly running to sort through all that data, to analyze it, to judge it, and ultimately to try and make some sense of it all. Right, this is the engine room. Siwei is your mind's CPU, and that makes it the ultimate point of leverage. This is where you, the programmer, can finally step in and decide which programs to run, how to organize your files, and what you actually want to build with all that information. So we have the hardware, the data, and the processor working away. What happens when you put it all together and hit the run command? Well, you get the result, your experienced reality, or as the source calls it, Ishi, pronounced Ishi. Think of Ishi as your personal operating system in its fully running state. It's the stable, coherent worldview that just sort of emerges after your hardware, your sin, gets filled with data, your xinling, and is constantly being organized by your processor, your siwei. It's the whole user interface you use to experience the world. So let's look at the whole workflow, top to bottom. It all starts with the empty potential of your mind space, your xin. Then that space gets filled with the raw data of your inner content, your xinling. That data is then actively processed by your thinking, your siwei, which finally crystallizes into the stable reality, your ishi, that you live in every single day. So here's the million-dollar question. If you want to upgrade your experience, where do you put your energy? And the answer is just crystal clear. You can't really change the hardware, and data is always going to be flowing in. The real power, the real leverage is in the processor. The work is in upgrading how you think, your siwei. And this brings us to the most empowering part of this entire model. If the how of our thinking is the key, then how do we actually become the programmer? How do we get our hands on the keyboard and start coding a new reality? Well, here are 5 commands you can use to start recoding. 1, you got to become aware of your default programs, your habitual ways of thinking. 2, practice what's called selfless thinking by temporarily just dropping your own standpoint. 3, you have to consciously choose your input. High-quality data leads to a high-quality reality. 4, establish orderly mental processes. Think of them as new algorithms for your mind. And 5, regularly empty the cache through things like meditation or just quiet reflection to keep the whole system from getting bogged down.
This right here is the ultimate takeaway. Your power isn't in fighting the reality you have. It's in changing the process that creates it. When you change how you think, your C-way, you are literally actively rewriting the code of your consciousness, your ishi. You are upgrading your own operating system from the inside out. And so, we're going to end with a question for you. You've seen the architecture of your inner OS. You know where the code is written, the keyboard is yours, so what are you going to program?